night, the Upper Hunter rocked again. A magnitude 4.5 earthquake hits Muswellbrook. Hello, I'm Lydia Feng. This is ABC News. An American activist is reportedly killed by Israeli forces while protesting in the occupied West Bank. Independent MPs raise the alarm over deep-fake videos and call for stronger protections. The Swans pull off an amazing comeback against the Giants in an all-Sydney finals showdown. And life's anything but a drag. Broken Hill celebrates 30 years of Priscilla. The Upper Hunter has suffered its third serious earthquake in as many weeks. The magnitude 4.5 quake could be felt as far away as Sydney, Dubbo and Wollongong, but the greatest force was centred on Muswellbrook, which has been living with regular tremors for weeks.
2 weeks after this quake, and this one, the New South Wales Upper Hunter has been hit by another sizable earthquake.
We woke up to the house shuddering, the bed moving.
There was a bang which woke me up and then everything just shook.
Many Muswellbrook residents were startled just before 6 o'clock this morning when a magnitude 4.5 quake rattled the area.
I thought that my brother was trying to wake me up because my windows were shaking.
In the last earthquake, I didn't even feel it at all at school, but this time I actually felt the earthquake. It was actually insane.
More than 2,500 homes and businesses were left without power for several hours, but it wasn't enough to stop the fun at one local festival.
Was anything going to stop you?
No, absolutely not. No, it was. Normally they say it's a hail, rain or shine event, so we've just got a tag on there now, earthquake as well.
And it wasn't just Muswellbrook feeling the force of the quake.
Well, we do know that it was felt in Sydney. The earthquake was felt as far north as Tamworth, to Wollongong in the south, and as far west as Dubbo.
A worker was treated for minor injuries at Mount Arthur coal mine, which briefly suspended operations.
We've got council staff out assessing things as we speak right now, and they'll continue through to Monday. So we're just keeping an eye on the heritage items along with the major infrastructure that can be impacted.
There have been dozens of tremors around here since the first quake last month, and experts are warning locals to expect more of the same.
There is perhaps an elevated likelihood that we could see similar-sized earthquakes occurring relative to the normal baseline conditions. Over the coming weeks and months, we will see a gradual decline in both the rate of the earthquakes occurring and also hopefully the magnitudes of those earthquakes as well.
There's been so many earthquakes lately, it's kind of like it's the norm now.
But hopefully not for much longer. Amelia Bernasconi, ABC News, Muswellbrook.
Independent Senator David Pocock is urging Parliament to ban AI-generated campaign material before the next election, and he's sought to demonstrate just how potent it can be, making 2 deepfake clips of the Prime Minister and opposition leader to prove his point. The government is working on election reforms, but AI isn't currently in the frame. Political reporter Tom Lowry has more.
Can't believe what I've just seen.
It looks like any other press conference.
We'll see a 3-year, phased-in, complete ban on all forms of gambling advertising.
As does this. The coalition will support the government's bill, but both are fake. AI-generated deepfakes made by Independent Senator David Pocock.
Generative AI poses a threat to our democracy. There are currently no rules that say that you can't use generative AI to make the kind of videos that I made.
To be clear, the government has not announced a complete ban on gambling advertising, nor is the coalition offering support. The issue has caused turmoil within Labor ranks in recent weeks. The clips are a stunt, aimed at getting the government's attention ahead of the next election.
These are pretty low-budget videos, and so in an election campaign, I'm sure you'll see much higher quality videos.
AI does pose a threat to democracy,
and it's becoming bigger and bigger across the world. It's getting harder and harder to pick up by people out there.
Online tools make AI-generated clips like these, a viral and fake clip of movie star Tom Cruise, relatively easy to make.
Hey, listen up, sports and TikTok fans.
That makes banning it, even just in election campaigns, potentially difficult.
All they're doing basically is responding to what content is already before our eyes and not preventing it from getting there in the first place.
The government says it's acutely aware of the problem.
This is not technology that we can stop. It's not going away. We have to find a way where Australians can have some protection from deliberately false information and content.
The government is looking at changes to how elections are run in time for the next poll, but it's largely looking at donation rules and campaign spending. Tackling a problem like AI might not happen in time. Tom Lowry, ABC News, Canberra.
A Knox grammar teacher has been granted bail and banned from entering the school after being charged with grooming a child for sex. 27-year-old William Golson was an English and drama teacher at the North Shore Private School before being arrested and charged with one count of grooming a child under the age of 16. During his bail hearing today, the court heard messages between the pair allegedly showed Mr. Golson knew the victim was only 15 years old. His bail conditions ban him from having contact with anyone under the age of 18. He'll face court again later this month. The US is demanding answers after the death of a Turkish-American dual citizen during a protest against Israel settlements on the West Bank. Turkey has described the death of Ashina Egi as murder committed by Benjamin Netanyahu's government. The Israeli army says it's investigating what happened.
Medics rush Aishanur Egi to an ambulance, but it's already too late.
Go with her.
The 26-year-old is pronounced dead in a Nablus hospital.
They're standing up for people. Standing up for people. They killed her. They shot her in the head.
Egi had just graduated from the University of Washington. She was demonstrating against an Israeli settlement near Baita when she was shot. A witness says the confrontation with troops was already over when a soldier opened fire. But the IDF says its troops were threatened by a rock-throwing demonstrator.
Let's find out exactly what happened, and we will draw the necessary conclusions and consequences from that.
Aishana Aigi's death puts further pressure on the relationship between Israel and its number one ally at a particularly delicate time. Washington keeps talking up the chances of reaching a ceasefire in Gaza, while the Israeli Prime Minister is talking them down. The killing comes amid a heavy Israeli military campaign in the West Bank, the biggest in years. The northern city of Jenin's been the focus of a major Israeli operation over the past week and a half. For now, though, Israeli forces appear to have withdrawn. They're claiming success, but leaving behind destruction.
Abby, terrorists? No, we are not terrorists. We are peaceful. They're the terrorists, killing our children.
The city council is accusing Israel of destroying most of Jenin's critical infrastructure in its raids. Thousands turned out for the funerals of Palestinian militants. A show of strength and survival just hours after the Israeli withdrawal. Eric Dworchak, ABC News.
A British man has been jailed for 9 years for stoking a fire at a hotel housing asylum seekers. It's the longest prison sentence imposed so far in the UK in relation to a wave of anti-immigration riots last month.
200 asylum seekers are trapped inside a hotel in South Yorkshire in England as hundreds of anti-immigration rioters set fires outside and then barge in. Police are injured as they struggle to gain control over the violent mob. A month on, one of the rioters, 27-year-old Thomas Burley, has been sentenced to 9 years jail after pleading guilty to charges including arson with intent to endanger life. Police video shows him throwing a bin in their direction. He is then seen stoking a fire around an access point into the hotel.
Your conduct and the conduct of that mob has cast a dark and ugly stain. Those in the hotel were terrified by what occurred outside.
His sentence is the longest to date. Around 250 people have been jailed so far over their involvement in days of violent disorder across the UK in August, fuelled by misinformation on social media after 3 young girls were killed in the northern English town of Southport. Their deaths were falsely blamed on a migrant.
You and many like you were intent on spreading a hateful message.
Further charges are continuing to be brought by police against rioters across the country. Rani Hayman, ABC News, London.
Corrective Services New South Wales has confirmed the death of convicted child killer and serial pedophile Michael Guider. Guider was convicted in 2001 over the death of 9-year-old Bondi girl Samantha Knight. She went missing in 1986, and despite extensive searches for her body, she was never found. Her 73-year-old killer died in custody this morning at the Prince of Wales Hospital in Sydney. A New York judge has delayed the sentencing of Donald Trump's criminal hush money case until after the upcoming presidential election. The decision removes the risk of imprisonment for the former US president for now. Mr. Trump's lawyers are also trying to have the verdict in a separate defamation case thrown out.
Stepping off the campaign trail for yet another day in court.
No one is above the law!
Donald Trump returned to New York, attempting to overturn a verdict that found him liable of sexual abuse and defamation of E. Jean Carroll, and ordered to pay her more than $100 million. But soon after, he was back on the attack, potentially digging a deeper financial hole.
It's a made-up, fabricated story by somebody, I think initially just looking to promote a book, and when they called me, I denied the story. I got sued essentially for defamation because I'm denying a story where I'm right. I should be suing her for defamation.
In a different matter, a significant legal victory. Trump was supposed to be sentenced this month for illegally concealing hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels. Judge Juan Merchan has delayed that sentencing until after the upcoming election. He says to avoid any appearance, however unwarranted, that it seeks to affect the result.
I think what the judge did here is said, I am going to give this defendant a fair shot either way, that no matter what, this court is going to continue to be impartial. And even if there's any inkling of impropriety, we're going to dispel that.
Despite Trump being bogged down by multiple legal issues in the past 2 years, this remains a close race, with polls showing no outright leader between him and his Democratic opponent, Kamala Harris. Trump will go to this election as a convicted felon, but unpunished. It's unclear whether that will help or hinder his chance of victory. Carrington Clark, ABC News, Washington.
Teachers are currently in short supply in every state and territory, with retention of staff now one of the biggest challenges facing schools. Educators are turning away from the profession in their thousands due to burnout, many opting for complete change of career. And experts say without a fresh approach to keeping them in the classroom, the scarcity of teachers will only get worse.
Hayley Gale has swapped whiteboards for a fertility clinic in Perth's western suburbs. After 25 years of teaching, the workload and stress had become overwhelming.
I had actually started to get physical symptoms in terms of stress-related things. I'd been to the doctor because I'd had heart palpitations and a few things like that, like breathing issues.
She's now working as a donor coordinator, helping families link up with egg and sperm donors. During the COVID pandemic, when workloads exploded, the 53-year-old reached a tipping point. She's worked in both public and private systems and says teacher burnout is universal.
It's not a school, it is every sector, and the pay is not the issue because there are other times when I was getting paid more. It's the work-life balance. It's having basically no life.
Teachers like Mrs. Gale are fed up by classes full to the brim and increased workloads. And it's driving them to leave sooner.
I noticed quite a significant shift 4 or 5 years ago when I first started to work for the union, that we saw teachers in that 60, 65-year-old bracket preparing for retirement, and then post-COVID, suddenly it's now 50 to 60.
According to Jobs and Skills Australia, early childhood, primary and secondary school teachers were in shortage across every state and territory in 2022 and 2023. It also found primary and secondary school teachers were among the most in-demand jobs last year. The federal government estimates by 2025 there'll be a shortfall of 4,000 secondary teachers. It hasn't done similar modelling on primary schools. Experts believe the problem is far worse than what's been publicly acknowledged.
We have seen teacher shortages in the past, no doubt. There has been moments of crisis, which the media would have called a crisis, and policymakers would have as well. But the scale and the scope of this particular crisis at the moment is unprecedented.
Dr. Karnovsky says the answer lies in more government funding in wraparound support services to ease the load on teachers, something he says contributes significantly towards burnout.
They don't necessarily have the supports of counsellors, psychologists, social workers, you even have occupational therapists, physiotherapists, people who can come into school and support teachers in the work that they do.
The federal government says it's working to turn Australia's teacher shortages around through a range of reforms already in place, including Commonwealth-funded scholarships, paid practical placements for students, and reforms to teacher training. Supporting teachers in meaningful ways, so there are enough of them to inspire the next generation of learners. Courtney Withers, ABC News.
The Swans have pulled off an incredible comeback in this afternoon's All-Sydney AFL final at the SCG. While the Swans get a week off, the result means the Giants will now face either Brisbane or Carlton in a must-win semi-final next weekend.
With the stage set for a finals derby, Jesse Hogan wasted no time adding to his season's goal tally.
Jesse's got the first 2 goals of the game.
Tempers flared between the usual suspects, fueling a run of goals and giving the Giants some breathing room. With the margin threatening to blow out, Isaac Heaney got to work.
One-hander! A beauty!
And after the break, gave his side a much-needed lift.
Heaney! What a hanger!
The Swans got in each other's way and faced a 21-point deficit heading into the final term. But some individual brilliance saw them peg back the margin, and who else but Heaney finally closed the gap with 3 minutes left on the clock.
Scores level! Ridiculous!
The surging Swans capitalised on their momentum as the Giants lost their footing and surrendered the lead.
With his first goal, and the Swans are in front.
And the final siren couldn't come soon enough. The come-from-behind victory pushing the Swans straight through to a preliminary final. Last night, more than 97,000 watched Hawthorn's young guns end the Western Bulldogs season in style. 7 goals between teenagers Kel Shadir and Nick the Wizard Watson, and a cheeky Jack Ginnivan goal after he was criticised for going to the pub the night before, proving the Hawks' freshest faces thrive under pressure.
I wonder if it's the naivety of youth. I wonder if they just don't know it's a big deal. They don't really know any different.
The Bulldogs now forced to lick their wounds and contemplate what could have been.
We're as flat as the proverbial hats, as you can imagine.
A semi-final against Port Adelaide now awaits. Erin Marsigovetere, ABC News.
The Raiders will be desperately hoping for a Knights and Dolphins draw tomorrow afternoon after moving into the NRL's top 8 for now. Canberra fought back against a fast-starting Dragons to win 26-24 at Cogra, giving life to their slim chance of playing finals.
Needing plenty of points to produce a top 8 unthinkable, the Dragons wasted no time getting on the scoreboard. Soon, one try became two, then three, before the Raiders awoke from their slumber. The hosts led 24-10 at the break, but Canberra rallied with 3 second-half tries and this effort to steal the match and finish their regular season on a high.
He looks comfortable, and that's his 4th game of rugby league since he was 15. It's a pretty good job.
Earlier in the battle for the wooden spoon, the Eels put 60 points on the Tigers to resign them to a 3rd straight last place finish.
The thing that people probably look at is success now and having overnight success, but we're looking at like trying to have success for a long period of time, not just win 1 year and then go missing for the next 3.
Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
And the Cowboys have guaranteed themselves a home final next week after thrashing the Bulldogs in Sydney. North Queensland got off to a flying start, scoring 3 unanswered tries to take a 20-0 lead into half-time. It was a similar story after the break, with the visitors rampaging past the Canterbury defence. The 44-6 win means North Queensland have leapfrogged Canterbury on the table. The Bulldogs will have to wait on the result of Manly's match tomorrow to know if they will still get to host a home final. Men's tennis world number 1 Jannik Sinner is sweating on an injured wrist after winning through to the US Open final by beating Britain's Jack Draper. The Italian hurt his left wrist falling against the backboarding during a rally in the second set, while Draper vomited 3 times during the match in stifling humidity in New York. Sinner won in straight sets to book his spot in the final against American Taylor Fritz. Fritz beat compatriot Francis Tiafoe in a 5-set epic to reach his first major final. Australian swimmers have dominated day 9 of the Paralympics, winning all 7 of the medals claimed by our athletes. Ben Hance and Callum Simpson were the stars, securing gold in their events.
Australians have made a habit of breaking world records in heat swims, and Ben Hance joined the party in the 100-metre backstroke S14 event, beating his own mark.
Oh, yeah!
He couldn't quite match that time in the final, but still blitzed the field to defend his Tokyo gold.
It's gold for Benny Hance!
And he paid tribute to his father Tony, who died in March this year, aged just 55.
I've never dealt with death, and I just wanted to win the gold medal for him.
Soaking it all up.
At just 17, he has the world at his feet. Callum Simpson came out on top in a tight finish in the men's 100 metres freestyle S8 final.
Oh, what a touch!
He gained a 2nd gold medal after his relay triumph earlier this week.
To finally have my dream, to finally come true, is amazing.
Australian swimmers won a further 4 bronze medals, while Tim Hodge backed up his gold from yesterday by winning silver in the 100 metres butterfly S9 final.
Phenomenal!
Australian swimmers won 34 medals, including 8 golds at the Tokyo Paralympics. So far in Paris, they've won 25 medals, including 6 gold, with 1 day to go.
They're just so much more than sports stars. Like and that's something we could be really proud of. But at the end of the day, we will be judged on medals.
Australia's Paralympic co-captain, Curtis McGrath, has waited all games to hit the water. But when he did, he laid down a marker, making it to the finals of both his events, the kayak and the va'a.
It's a perfect opening day for Curtis McGrath.
Australians missed out on medals in Friday's cycling road races, but Great Britain's Sarah Storey added to her legend, winning the C4-5 road race in a sprint. Incredibly, it's her 19th Paralympic gold, the most of any current Paralympian.
And day 10 of competition is already underway in Paris, with another Aussie taking top spot on the podium. National Sport reporter David Mark is at the Stade de France.
James Turner has begun the day in stunning fashion for Australia, winning the men's 100 metres T36 final in a Paralympic record. He stormed home over the last 40 metres to win by just 0.03 of a second and get his second gold for these games after he earlier won the 400 metres. Shortly before that, Reid McCracken won the bronze medal for Australia in the T34 800 metres. He got that by just 1/100th of a second, and that equals the results he got in Rio. In a little while, Curtis McGrath will compete in the final of the men's kayak, the over 200 metres. It's the KL2. He'll be seeking to get his 4th Paralympic gold medal. And Dylan Littlehales will be in the KL3 final, seeking to get his 1st Paralympic medal. Later tonight, there are 15 gold medals on offer in the final day of swimming at the La Défense Arena at the Paralympic Games in Paris. It's the penultimate day, but there's still so much on offer.
It's now been 3 decades since a bus called Priscilla drove through the outback onto our screens and into Australian hearts. This weekend, drag queens from around the nation are celebrating the film's 30th anniversary at the Broken Hill Festival at Broken Hill. They're looking back at the movie's legacy while also kicking up their heels.
They're like weapons.
They are dangerous.
Amanda Screetley is living her childhood dream of performing in drag across the country.
Oh, that works really well, actually.
Amanda, aka Tom Henderson, grew up between Burke and Wilcannia on a working station as one of 4 boys. But after watching Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, life was never the same.
It made it not a thing that happened in the cities or something that happened overseas or something like that. It was like, people like that are here, and I can be like that here. That was a pretty big important part of it for me.
Scenes of the main street and the Palace Hotel put Broken Hill in the spotlight, with the Outback City embracing this fame in recent years, alongside all things Priscilla.
In 1994, that was the only movie that I ever saw that was queer.
You know, being belted up by cops and whatever, I could identify with it.
After almost a decade, this year's Broken Hill Festival is being billed as the last, so organisers can turn their attention to other projects. And 30 years on from the film's release, some are asking whether the film still holds up, particularly the way it depicts gender and race.
I love the fact that the film puts our trans brothers and sisters and family right at the centre of our queer community. If you are doing that now, would you cast a cis man to play that trans character? No, you wouldn't. We've learned how to do better.
Whatever its flaws, Priscilla still holds a special place in Amanda's heart.
There are still kids out there who are finding it and realising how big their community is. I think that's why it's still relevant today.
And with a sequel now in the works, it's time to get ready for another adventure. Coca O'Connor, ABC News, Broken Hill.
Now let's take a look at the weather. It was a sunny start to the day in Sydney today before the clouds rolled in. It reached 26 in the city and 28 in Penrith. Overnight lows were generally in the mid to high teens. It dropped to just 7 degrees in Armidale and Kempsey. Maximums today reached as high as 32 in Burke. On today's satellite, a high pressure system in the Tasman Sea is driving low-level cloud across Queensland and the top end, while a low pressure trough is crossing central parts of New South Wales. That trough will move into the northeast of the state tomorrow, bringing unsettled conditions. Around the country tomorrow, a shower or 2 in Melbourne, mostly sunny in Canberra and Perth, and another hot day ahead for Brisbane and Darwin. For the northeast, a sunny start to the day in the northern rivers, but grey skies are expected for the mid-north coast and Hunter. In the southeast, a fine day ahead in the south coast, Illawarra and southern tablelands. To the west, mostly sunny in the Riverina, lower western region and southwest slopes, but partly cloudy with a chance of thunderstorms elsewhere. Off the coast, winds from 10 to 30 knots and seas 1/2 to 2 metres. In Sydney tomorrow, a slight chance of a morning shower, but sunny for the rest of the day. A top of 24 expected in the city and Parramatta. The sun will rise at 6:03. And further ahead, sunny on Monday, a top of 25 in the city and the west, mostly sunny on Tuesday and Wednesday, then partly cloudy and showers for the rest of the week. And that's all for ABC News. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Tonight, after days of back and forth, confirmation that questions on both sexual orientation and gender will be included in the next census. Hello, I'm Jeremy Fernandez. This is ABC News. Cameras monitoring average speeds to be expanded to all motorists on two notorious regional trouble spots. 10 years on from the disappearance of William Tyrrell, the search continues for the missing 3-year-old in the Spider-Man suit. And Curtis McGrath wins the men's kayak single 200 metres KL2 event to collect his 4th Paralympic gold. For the first time, Australians aged 16 and older will be asked about their sexual orientation and gender in the next census. It follows a backlash over an earlier decision to exclude such questions. The government's hoping the move will repair the fallout from its handling of the issue as it tries to regain control of the political agenda ahead of Parliament's return.
On the census,
on message to clean up a mess of the government's making.
LGBTIQ plus Australians matter and they will count in the 2026 census.
Counting after calculating the political impact of a decision to quietly pull questions on sexuality and gender from the next census over concerns it was divisive, alienating allies and frustrating those within its own ranks.
We had good intentions here and we've listened to the community and we've worked with the ABS.
The next national survey will now ask Australians aged 16 and over about their sexual orientation and gender, with the option not to answer. And on the back of advice from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, it will exclude any questions about variations of people's sex characteristics. Initially seeking to appease anger, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had said one question would be included. The Treasurer today clarifying it will be a whole topic, with details to be determined at a later date.
The ABS will work out the questions themselves. The government doesn't write the questions.
This is a sensible and moral course of action. For the very first time in Australia, crucial data about some of the most vulnerable populations in this country will be collected.
The decision fulfills a promise Labor made to the party faithful, with the government also hoping it will put an end to the politically damaging saga.
Our values around this have always been very clear. We seek to include everyone.
We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis and have now had a 2-week-long internal debate about questions on the census in 2 years' time.
In trying to avoid a culture war, the government unwittingly started one. And now, with the census issue seemingly resolved, Labor will use the return of Parliament this week to try to gain control of the agenda, with a focus on the economy. It'll also seek to win over the coalition in its bid to overhaul funding of the aged care sector and create a federal environment watchdog, trying to break the deadlock to secure political wins. Stephanie Dalzell, ABC News, Canberra.
Protesters have turned out in record numbers in Israel, demanding the government reach a deal to release the remaining hostages being held in Gaza. Organisers say 500,000 people took to the streets in the capital, Tel Aviv. Another 250,000 marched in other parts of the country. The demonstrations have taken place 1 week after the bodies of 6 hostages were recovered in Gaza. Meanwhile, ceasefire talks have stalled amid Israel's demands for continued control over land near Gaza's border with Egypt.
We cannot wait any longer. It's been enough, 11 months exactly today, that the people are dying in the tunnel. We cannot let it happen. We cannot go on with our life.
The New South Wales government will trial average speed cameras in regional parts of the state to try to curb the rising road toll. Point-to-point cameras are currently only used for heavy vehicles and calculate a driver's average speed as opposed to how fast they're going when they pass a speed camera. The cameras will be switched on for all vehicles at specific points on the specific highway and Hume Highway for a 6-month trial.
We're really concerned about the regional road toll. A third of people live in regional New South Wales, but they're represented in 2/3 of the fatalities. When it comes to speeding fatalities, 3/4 of them happen in regional New South Wales.
This week marks 10 years since 3-year-old William Tyrrell vanished from the town of Kendall on the New South Wales north coast. It's a case that's captivated the nation and frustrated police who have so far been unable to find out what happened to the little boy in the Spider-Man suit.
Michelle Dalton used to make the same phone call every morning to her elderly mother, who lived around the corner in Kendall.
Hi, Mum.
The call she made on September 12, 2014 is forever seared in her memory.
I rang her and just said, what are you up to? And she's like, oh, we're outside looking for a little boy.
Her mother lived on Benaroon Drive, where 3-year-old William Tyrrell was last seen playing in his foster grandmother's yard that morning. Ms Dalton quickly joined the search, along with dozens of other locals.
When you're a mum, I think you know the feeling of losing your little boy. And yeah, we were just all desperately looking for this little boy.
In those crucial first few hours and days, police assumed William had simply wandered off into the bush or into a nearby property. But as the search widened and the days ticked by, it became more difficult to ignore other possible scenarios.
We have no indication whether young William is out in the bush or whether other forms of human intervention are involved.
In the 10 years since, there have been multiple forensic searches in and around Kendall, which have all failed to find any significant physical evidence. The coronial inquest has dragged on for more than 5 years and heard testimony about multiple persons of interest, but no charges have ever been laid. In recent years, the strike force has publicly identified William's foster mother as their prime suspect, but she has also never been charged over his disappearance and denies any knowledge of what happened to him.
If the police had enough evidence to charge William Tyrrell's foster mother in relation to this, then that would have happened by now.
With the coronial inquest expected to finally wrap up later this year, there are fears William's case will remain unsolved.
Sadly, at this point, I think that if William's final location is ever discovered, that may be an accident. It's rare that somebody can commit a crime as serious as child abduction and likely murder without ever telling anyone. So somebody out there knows something.
For those in the Kendall community, William's case has a lasting impact.
It's got a terrible stigma hanging over it, and you can go anywhere in Australia and mention Kendall and they all know that that's where little William Tyrrell disappeared from.
A once happy little boy who may never be found. Leah Harris, ABC News, Sydney.
Pope Francis has celebrated an outdoor mass with more than 35,000 faithful in Papua New Guinea's capital. It's the pontiff's second full day in PNG as part of a regional tour and the first papal visit to the Pacific's most populous nation in almost 3 decades.
To a crowd of thousands, Pope Francis delivered a message of hope. His presence stirring up deep emotions.
Even before the Mass, I was already dropping tears. Having him here in PNG, I'd say it's a blessing.
In a country of about 2.5 million Catholics, some travelled days to see His Holiness. This 53-year-old grandmother trekked the grueling Kokoda track in sandals.
I looked up at the high mountains. People said I would die trying to climb them, but my spirit pushed me on.
Despite being partially paralysed in one leg, Nicky Domas walked hundreds of kilometres from his home in the Highlands.
If it was a Prime Minister or King or Queen, I wouldn't come to Port Moresby. But this is my father, and I want to be healed.
Some came from even further afield, including Australia.
We wanted to come up and support our religious up here, and of course to be with the Pope, hear the Pope in person. It's really inspiring.
During his visit, the Pope has called in particular for women's rights in a country where violence against girls and women is estimated to be twice the global average. After a brief touchdown in the remote town of Vanimo, Pope Francis will depart PNG tomorrow, heading for Timor-Leste, where his followers are already celebrating. Marianne Farr, ABC News, Port Moresby.
Now to tonight's special report on the race for the White House and the Trump-backed Republicans who've drawn up new rules to contest and challenge election results in a swing state. The battleground of Georgia was won by Joe Biden by fewer than 12,000 votes last election, culminating in a now infamous phone call in which Donald Trump pushed to have the result overturned. Now for the 2024 election, Trump loyalists on Georgia's election board have enacted sweeping rule changes which critics say could cause chaos and delay the certification of results. North America correspondent Barbara Miller travelled to Atlanta for this story.
We got the black vote anyway. They always, man, no backbone, no nothing.
Maurice Combs is no fan of Donald Trump.
I mean, everything coming out of his mouth is not true.
He'll be voting for Kamala Harris in November's election.
I have mixed thoughts, but I'm going to stand behind her because she's running Democrat.
In 2020, Joe Biden flipped the peach state. Several recounts didn't change the outcome, but Donald Trump didn't let go.
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
4 years on, Brad Raffensperger is making a show of testing election systems around the state.
We have fair, secure, accurate elections here in Georgia.
But a Republican-dominated state election board is passing new rules, allowing politically appointed election officials to conduct investigations and recounts at their own discretion.
They're talking about opening up those ballot boxes at the local precincts instead of bringing back to the headquarters in a secured box.
Should the rules be overturned?
I do not support the rules as they are.
That's a yes?
I do not support the rules as they are.
Donald Trump has heaped praise on the board members pushing the changes.
Pit bulls fighting for honesty, transparency, and victory. They're fighting.
He liked what we were doing, and that's what he said. I haven't had any conversations with him or his team.
Board member Janelle King rejects allegations the new rules are designed to cause chaos. You're 100% sure that Georgia's election results will be certified?
I can't be 100% sure of anything, but I will say that if I had to bet as much as everything I have, I'll put it on there that yes, it will be certified.
This is not just unethical. It is illegal.
Democrats are calling for the board members to be removed.
Last time around, Donald Trump tried to overthrow our votes, and now him and his MAGA allies are doing similar things at the state election board.
The criminal case against Donald Trump over his alleged election interference in Georgia in 2020 is on hold, but the former president has made the indictment part of his campaign.
The mugshot, we've all seen the mugshot, and you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible.
It's like a slap to the face because he's privileged. You know, I got friends that can't vote because they're convicted felon, and then he can run for president.
I think that comment was awkward, but I get it. It's not a matter of black men identifying with being criminals. That's not what this is about. This is about black men feeling like they've been marginalized, and that he's one of the few white men in America that can relate to that.
Feelings run deep because in a state like Georgia, every single vote counts. Joe Biden won here by fewer than 12,000 votes in 2020. Atlanta businessman Azad Ahmadi will be voting for Donald Trump for a third time.
I know where he stands, whether he likes something or he doesn't. It's very clear to me.
And his fiancée thinks that for the first time, she'll also back a Republican presidential candidate, even if a black woman is running for the Democrats.
Your initial thought is, wow, there's an African-American woman in the position to be president, right? And then that facade kind of went out the window. It's like, where has she been the whole presidency when Biden was here? I mean, it's like she was a ghost.
In the complex maths of the US presidential system, a candidate needs 270 electoral college votes to take the White House. Whoever wins Georgia gets 16, and that's quite a prize. It could even be enough to decide the entire presidential race. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Atlanta, Georgia.
South Korea is facing a reckoning about the proliferation of harmful deep-fake pornography. Law enforcement officers and politicians are promising to crack down on the illegal behaviour, but many victims say attitudes among men need to change. North Asia correspondent James Oden reports from Seoul.
These women have had enough of a social media scourge. The number of reported deepfake cases has exploded in recent weeks, with chat rooms exposed containing thousands of members creating and disseminating fabricated sexual images of real girls and women. Most perpetrators are teenagers.
Some may dismiss it as a mere prank, but it is clearly a criminal act.
Within this chat room, people can easily obtain deep fake photos by paying money through a bot system.
Independent journalist Won Yoon-ji cracked open the first major case earlier this year. Dozens of women harassed with their photographs converted into deepfake porn.
His attempts to really humiliate me and try to get me respond, that really just felt like a physical assault.
After building trust with the suspect over the encrypted messaging service Telegram, Yoon-ji lured him out, organising women's underwear to be dropped off at a university toilet block. When he came to collect, police swooped.
After nearly 2 years of conversation, it was the only moment I saw hope. I thought, this crime will end now. The victims can finally rest easy.
Facing a police investigation, Telegram has set up an exclusive email for authorities. The government's pushing for a hotline. Many women aren't waiting, deleting their social media photos en masse.
This problem is being viewed almost as a national disaster in Korea.
Creating deepfake material can result in a jail sentence of up to 5 years or a fine of almost $40,000. Politicians are now calling for even tougher measures, including lowering the age of criminal responsibility. What victims want is a change in attitudes among men.
So I'm less worried about the technologies than with the persistent misogyny and rape culture.
A need to prevent a problem that's proliferating in South Korea and abroad. James Oden, ABC News, Seoul.
The federal government's hoping its planned cap on international students will slow down net overseas migration. As the ABC's Alan Kohler explains, coupled with the construction of more homes, it's a policy that's aiming to address concerns about housing affordability.
The new cap on international students is mostly a housing policy. It's part of the plan to cut net overseas migration from last year's blowout of 547,000 to 235,000 over the next 4 years, as shown here. The idea is that 235,000 migrants plus natural increase equals about 350,000 people needing a place to live. At 2.4 people per dwelling, that means 145,000 houses and flats. And completions are running at about 42,000 per quarter, or 168,000 per year. So that's fine. Putting to one side the fact that it's going to take 4 years to get there, will it work? Well, immigration statistics are a nightmare, but to cut a complicated story short, it looks like there'll have to be other cuts than international students, or more people will have to leave for them to get to 235,000 net migration. But at least they're having a go at dealing with demand. Although, of course, there are a couple of elephants still in the room. As for supply, Victoria and New South Wales at least are trying to get more houses and flats built by raising height limits around train stations and giving councils housing targets. And densification does work. Look at this. Melbourne and Sydney have densified with more blocks of apartments and plan to keep at it, while Perth and Adelaide have not. Perth and Adelaide prices have taken off. So a good start has been made, but it took 25 years to achieve this housing crisis. Undoing it will take long-term, consistent political stamina, and that's about as rare as a $500,000 family home.
Curtis McGrath has confirmed his status as one of Australia's greatest Paralympians by winning the kayak 200 metres for the third Games in a row. It was an emotional win for the 36-year-old who paid tribute to his wife and young son who were unable to make the trip to Paris.
Curtis McGrath has had a long wait to get going in these Paralympics.
Here we go.
But as is his fashion, he didn't waste time when it was his turn in the 200 metres KL2 final.
Unstoppable and unbeatable.
The former soldier, whose legs were amputated as a result of a mine blast in Afghanistan, has won the event 3 times in a row. But to do it, the 36-year-old had to leave his family behind, including baby boy Monty, who needed open heart surgery soon after he was born.
I'm not here just to represent Australia. I'm here to represent my family, and that means so much to me. And it's been hard, so yeah, it's important that I did it for them too.
His teammates, Dylan Littlehales and Susan Seipel, won a silver and bronze, making it Australia's most successful day in canoeing at the Paralympics.
All eyes on lane 4.
From training in the family dam in Echuca to a silver in the 200 metres individual medley SM10 in Paris. It's been quite the journey for Cole Pearce.
I moved away at home at 14 to pursue this goal in making the Paralympics, so to be able to walk away with some silverware, it just means the world.
Rowan Carruthers flew home in the mixed 4x100 freestyle relay, 34 points, as Australia took the silver. The team of Carruthers, Chloe Osborne, Callum Simpson and Alexa Leary claimed Australia's 27th and final medal in the pool. Madison de Rosario had been hoping to defend the gold medal she won in the marathon in Tokyo, but she came second to the unbeatable Swiss, Catherine de Bruyne. De Bruyne has won every race from the 400 metres up to give her 5 gold medals, and she even got silver in the 100 metres.
She comes down to the finish line to collect her second medal of the Games. Madison de Rosario with the silver.
De Rosario's efforts show she's still amongst the world's best athletes, 16 years after she made her Paralympics debut. David Mark, ABC News, Paris.
The Knights have secured the final place in the NRL's top 8 after denying the Dolphins a fairy tale finish under Wayne Bennett in their second season. The two sides were jostling for a date with the Cowboys, with next week's finals matchups now officially locked in.
Not a spare seat at a sold-out Hunter Stadium to witness do-or-die football a week early.
This is sudden death, the final game of the regular season.
The sides went set for set until the deadlock looked to be broken 22 minutes in.
Here's Trey Fuller into a hole. Well, hold on.
A let-off for the hosts, who then took their revenge.
He dives in for Newcastle.
Their 6-0 lead immediately doubled shortly after the break.
Gives it to Brodie Jones. Ponga does it again.
But Ponga was then the victim of the Dolphins' frustrations, with captain Jesse Bromwich paying the price for this hit.
Yeah, you're on report. In the big
A late try to Hamiso Tabuai Fido gave the visitors hope, but the Knights held on to set up a battle with the Cowboys in Townsville.
What a performance it has been.
Earlier at a sold-out Brookvale, a home final was on offer for the Sea Eagles. But the Sharks were determined to enter next week in red-hot form, turning their 16-8 halftime lead into a 40-20 win.
He's on his way again. Brett Nicola.
Last night, the Panthers withstood a gritty Gold Coast side to lock in a top 2 finish and a home qualifying final.
It didn't sort of look like we wanted it to look like, but yeah, the main thing was to win the game, and that's what we did.
The Roosters await next week. Jessica Stewart, ABC News.
The Roosters have handed the Sharks their first loss of the NRLW season and sent a warning shot to their competitors in the process. Sydney thumped the ladder leaders 40-0 at Shark Park, with 7 different players scoring tries in the victory. They now move into second spot. Parramatta's on the cusp of entering the top 4 after defeating Gold Coast 24-14. Rachel Pearson's perfect day off the kicking tee proved decisive as the Eels put a dent in the Titans' finals hopes. To the AFL, Carlton is making no excuses for its terrible start against Brisbane and last night's defeat in the elimination final at the Gabba. A dejected Blues team returned to Melbourne lamenting its poor first half, which ultimately ended their season. The Lions were utterly dominant early. They kicked 60 points before Carlton even registered a score almost an hour into the match. There was a mini fight back. The Blues kicked 9 goals to 5 after half-time to save some face, but it was too late. Michael Voss made 6 changes for the elimination final, adding players returning from injury.
Those boys put their hand up and trained the house down for a couple of weeks, and the selection was made through their preparation and showing that they're up and ready to go. And I don't think that was the reason or not why we came out slow.
Jordan Thompson and Max Purcell have led Australia's spirited US Open campaign with a redemption triumph in the men's doubles final. The Aussie stars say the straight sets victory wasn't all smooth sailing and that their heartbreaking loss at Wimbledon wasn't far from their minds.
It was the perfect end to a magical fortnight for Australia's male tennis stars at Flushing Meadows. After making the 4th round in singles, Jordan Thompson joined Max Purcell in the men's doubles final. Seeing off German pair Kevin Kravitz and Tim Putz in straight sets. It was sweet redemption for Sydney's dynamic duo after blowing 3 match points in the same situation at Wimbledon in July.
Yeah, Grand Slam champion. It's got a great ring to it. It got a little bit tense there at the end with match points. I thought I can't do it again, but we stuck with it, and we got there.
30-year-old Thompson leaves New York with a career-high ranking of world number 29 and a monster check for $1.15 million. In the singles, world number 2 Aryna Sabalenka outlasted Jessica Pegula in a tense women's final to claim her 3rd Grand Slam title. And Italian top seed Jannik Sinner must overcome a blaring home crowd when he takes on American Taylor Fritz in the men's decider. Bindi Bryce, ABC News.
The Wallabies have had a 40-point loss to Argentina in the Rugby Championship. Australia started well with 2 early tries in Santa Fe, but they started falling apart just before half-time as Los Pumas went on a rampage, running in 9 tries. The result, 67-27, is the Wallabies' biggest ever losing margin in a test match. They now turn their attention to the Bledisloe Cup later this month against the All Blacks, who are coming off 2 close losses to South Africa.
I think fire and brimstone now, leading up to the All Blacks in 2 weeks' time. We cannot let a game get away from us like it did and fall off a cliff effectively.
Let's take a look at the weather now. Cloudy skies over Sydney today. Temperatures overnight and during the day came in close to average for September, peaking about 20 to 21 degrees. It's been a mostly dry day across the state with only a few light showers about the Central Coast. It's been dry elsewhere despite a large band of cloud extending across much of the state into the interior. This is how it looks on the satellite picture. This evening that cloud is starting to bring some patchy light rain. We could see this wet weather expand over the northern districts tomorrow. However, it should stay clear and dry in the south. Tomorrow, it'll be sunny in Brisbane. Showers are expected in Adelaide and possibly Melbourne and Hobart. And for Canberra, it'll be partly cloudy. There's a high chance of showers in the northern tablelands and northern rivers tomorrow, tending less likely about the mid-north coast. In the Hunter, it'll be partly cloudy to mostly sunny. There's a similar outlook for the Illawarra and south coast tomorrow. The cloud will be more dominant over the central and southern tablelands. There's a severe weather warning for the western snowy mountains tonight. Damaging wind gusts to 120 kilometres an hour are expected in the alpine areas. Snow is possible tomorrow above 1,700 metres. It'll be dry and mostly sunny elsewhere. Winds on the southern ranges will be fresh at times tomorrow. Seas 1 to 2 metres on a southerly swell. Clear skies for Sydney tonight, then mostly sunny tomorrow. Overnight lows between 9 and 14, tops of 24 to 26 degrees. The sun will rise at 2 minutes past 6, and we may see some partly cloudy periods over Sydney until the middle of the week. Showers becoming more likely from Thursday through next weekend, and these are expected to be light, but with the cloud we will see daytime temperatures dialing back just a little. And that is the latest from the ABC News team. Thanks for your company. Enjoy the rest of your evening.